no. Hi, my friends. Today, chapter 4. Sorry for being late. I just got back from going shopping. And it was not a bad day. Just finished shopping, got back like 10 minutes ago. Literally. So, here we go. Chapter 4, ready to go. The fleet of Imperial shuttles passes through hyperspace towards System L382. Julia has taken the pilot seat of the lead shuttle as she's been training to be a pilot since her first time piloting a Viper on Orion. Book 2, I believe. Sorry, I forget. 2 or 3, I forget which one. She's an excellent shuttle pilot, but not ready for piloting a Viper fighter. She knows that she'd not survive a fight on a Viper against a Scorpion pilot. Sorry, I get some drink. Stephen, we are about 10 hours out of the L382 system, she says as he joins her in the cockpit, as he takes the co-pilot seat now vacated by Natuk. Thank you, Julia, Stephen says as he takes a look at the controls in front of him. And long lines of stars streak by around the shuttle. In front of Stephen on the board, there are 19 more green lights on the monitor, showing that the little fleet of ships was right alongside him. Behind them, in the cargo hold, the other members of the Samurai Order either sleep, meditate, or work on their weapons, and many eat too. You're an excellent pilot, Julia, Stephen says, looking over at her controls. She's made a few minor alterations to her moves, but nothing affected the course of the fleet of ships. Or the ship, sorry. Thank you, Master, Julia says, smiling. You are nowhere near ready to pilot a Viper, but I would let you pilot a shuttle anytime, Steve says. And I mean nothing bad by that. You do not have the eyes or the skills to pilot a Viper. Yes, you flew one on Orion, but we were not under attack at the time either. Oops, sorry, still got a couple more lines to read. I understand, Stephen, Julia says. I take no offense to that statement. Oh, good. I'll let you pilot a shuttle for me anytime, Stephen says, smiling. Julia has seen what kind of skill a Viper pilot needs in combat. Seen so many die in battle. Not many more have returned alive but badly wounded in some way. Her beloved among them. See book. Sorry. 1. Sorry. This time she pilots the lead shuttle headed for System L382. In the clash with the most evil being in the galaxy, Emperor Stilivanov. And I showed you a picture of him. Creepy looking guy, isn't he? And she's seen what her other friends, Rena and Rigo, and Hannah Baxter can do at the controls of a Y-wing Viper. And Stephen was her. Okay. Was her flight instructor for piloting the Imperial shuttle. And even pilot the Eagle is Sepulauted, of course. She'd soloed only weeks ago on a converted Imperial shuttle. When we're about an hour out of the system, please hand over controls, either me or Natuk. Understood? Understood, Julia says. Stephen sips from a thermos full of cold, sweet tea. Yeah, I'm going to change that. extra sweet tea. I like extra sweet tea. All right, Julia gets up to walk back to the rear cargo area to use the bathroom. And she sees other samurai settled down in bunks and on the floor. A few others sit up, either eating protein sticks and drinking whatever fluids are available. She finishes and returns to the cockpit. Stevens reclined back in his seat, and his eyes are closed. He's sleeping peacefully. She sits down in the pilot seat and checks out the readouts, smiling. She closes her eyes and reclines the seat back so she can rest. There's much room in that tiny little cock shuttle. And there's 20 people on board. We're here to relieve you, and Stephen Nutsook says as he taps her on the shoulder. Huh? She asks, opening her eyes. How long was I asleep? About 6 hours, Julia. He says as Stephen rises to his feet and relinquishes his seat to Colonel Peck. You two were sound asleep, but don't worry, we didn't lose anyone along the way. Good, she says, rising to her feet and walking back to Stephen as he walks back to the head bathroom again. She notices that most of the other occupants of the shuttle are now wide awake and checking their weapons, and some also eat and drink as they near their final destination, L3A2B, Pan. They don't know what they'll be facing when they are in the system. Some warriors duel with their samurai swords, blades activated, but the space is confined. The bunks are stowed and the bedrolls are rolled up and stowed away. She and Stephen sit down side by side to go over their sword hilts together to make sure the weapons are fully functional. She notes that one new samurai warrior is a scimitar, curved bladed sword. Curved. Love those kinds of weapons. Unlike her straight blade. May I ask you how you got that blade to work like that? She asks the warrior. I have the circuitry built into my sword hilt, Your Highness, she says, producing a spare integrated circuit from her pouch on the left side. She hands one to Julia. It works in conjunction with the base chip you have in your sword. If you look at the inner workings of the sword and the circuitry, you'll find extra mounts for upgrades. Plug-in ports. Let me change that. Okay. All right. Thank you, I will, Master, Julia says, pocketing the circuit. She disassembles her sword and gives a once-over, seeing ports in a tiny circuit board. She then inspects the inner workings of her sword hilt, reassembles it, and checks the fittings, especially the external hardpoints. And she is satisfied, so she reattaches it to her gun belt. I got some changes to make on the. Nothing serious. It's not going to be a long chapter. I changed my mind last night. May I have one of those chips, Master? Stephen asks. Of course, Admiral, the Master says, handing him one of the chips from her pouch. I carry extras for damage control and for interested masters like yourselves. They weigh so little, too. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Stephen says, smiling as he pockets the chip in his pouch and his gun belt. All right, take a break. All right, got a little heads up on it for you guys. Probably by the end of the month, my book will be out. I got to talk to the publisher. Because it looks like I owe more money, but I don't know how much. Maybe I can do payments on a payment plan if it does work that way. But I hope I can do. I can't afford a lot of cash. All right. Here we are, friends. Pan, Steven says as I drop out of hyperspace. Before them, they see nothing but rock and debris everywhere. Once it orbited as a vibrant global metropolis. Now there's nothing but blast damage from the moment the Dark Star 2 obliterated the planet. The battle station floats way off in the distance, below the debris field that used to be L382b, aka Pan. And around the battle station, a few hundred battle cruisers of all sizes orbit the planet-sized station, including a much larger and more menacing-looking battle cruiser that dwarfs the largest super battle cruisers. That's huge. And considering that the super battle cruisers are 10 miles long, this one's 20 miles long. Oh my God, Julia says as she looks through the viewport and at the station off in the distance. Do they know we're here? Stephen asks Matuk, now in the pilot seat. Negative, Admiral, Matuk says. I have 19 green lights on my board. Excellent. Make for the equatorial region of the station, Stephen says to Peck. In the co-pilot seat, I can't talk. You got it, Admiral. Peck says that she and Matuk pilot the full shuttle towards the large looming station. It looks like a planet, not what it truly is. A battle station with enough firepower to obliterate a planet in one shot. And it did. Once we land, keep the clicking devices activated, but call for a briefing once we are on planet side, Steven says. Yes, sir, Natuk says, nodding as they make for the station, passing only 100 meters in front of the command station of the super-sized super battle cruiser. Going single file now. Each shuttle is equipped with tracking devices that can only be detected by specialized equipment used exclusively by the Rebel Alliance. The Emperor is at the station. So is our mother, Steven says. Your mother? A few warriors say, confused. The Dark Ninja herself, Lovnoski. Steven says, answering the question flatly. But you're a samurai. Peck asks, confused. All right. Yes, we are. But a mother once upon a time. Sorry, started over. Yes, we are. So was our mother once upon a time, Julia says. Stephen and I plan to surrender to her and turn it back to our side before confronting the Emperor himself. But if need be, we will kill our mother, then confront the Emperor alone. At which point we will most likely die, and the Emperor shall continue, and the Alliance shall be no more. Most likely, Stephen says. So we must end this war here and now, no matter the cost. That's why I think I'm going to work on chapter 5, the next chapter. Here, someone calls out. Okay, drink break. A small fleet of stolen Imperial shuttles makes its way to the surface of the Dark Star 2, passing through the dense cloud cover to just above the southern hemisphere, a few kilometers south of the equatorial main gun trench, and over a large freshwater lake. That's when they encounter their first native life form, a flying bird about the size of a Y-wing, with an enormous wingspan, and is not alone. They see herds of lion-like creatures roaming a vast savanna below them, along with other wildlife inhabiting vast deserts, prairies, and Arctic tundra. The Empire has them left the animals alone too. Holy, there's native life on this station's surface, Stephen says. This changes plans a lot. Can I destroy the station? Julia says. No, we must save the station and its native life on the surface as much as possible. Stephen says, we will go to plan B then. I know we have no plan B, but here it is. We scratch the nukes, we spare the station and force the imps to surrender to save the wildlife on the surface. Everyone looks at him shocked. We still have 19 green lights on my board here, Stephen, Peck says, calling from our co-pilot seat. They fly past a large landing platform that dwarfs some of the tall trees in a vast forest. The Imperial shuttle lands on the platform as they fly past, unnoticed, and lands some kilometers south of the platform, close to one of the cone-shaped atmosphere processing towers. They form a ring with the rear loading hatches facing inwards. As the hatches open, light filters out through digital blackout screens as crew and passengers disembark. Okay, as most of you have seen, as we entered the atmosphere, there's life on the surface. Wildlife, Stephen says, as everyone assembles around him. This changes, damn, everything. We'll be scratching the nukes and trying to save the station as native life here. Everyone murmurs silently as they listen. The princess shall continue with our mission to face our mother and the emperor, Stephen says. There will be no change to that plan. That is all. Master Stephen, who is your mother? The sergeant asked, raising a hand. The Dark Ninja herself, Levnosky. Julia speaks up. Everyone looked at the young admiral and princess, shocked. I see changes that I gotta fix in the book. I'm making them as I read them, as I find them. If we must, we will kill our mother and face the emperor alone. But we'd rather try to get her to change back to her old peace-loving ways as a samurai warrior, Julia says. Hope in our heart. We hope that if we can change our mother to the samurai way again, we think we can defeat the emperor together as a family and as samurai warriors. Good luck, Admiral, Princess. Oh, Natuk says now. While we are camped on the station, no no fires, no shelters. Sorry, I changed that. No fires, no. Sorry, no shelters. No unnecessary light shall be used, Stephen says. We will set up camp around the area encircled by the shuttles, but everyone will sleep under the stars. Understood? Yes, sir, everyone calls out as the briefing comes to a close. What do you think so far? Okay. Stephen and Julia retire. There's a small encampment where a large two-person bedroll, thick with padding, keeps them warm at night, as all the camp will need it. They may be on the equator, but the temperatures fall to near freezing at night once the sun sets. It is currently nearly 32 degrees Celsius, and the temperature is dropping rapidly as the massive red giant sun sets in the west. I'm changing that. Changing that to the east. It's not the. But off in the far distance, they can see the supermassive black hole that resides at the center of the Milky Way galaxy, Sagittarius A star. A flight of Scorpion fighters passes by high overhead, and the camp is well hidden among the trees of the forests. At the same time, the rebels hide among the tall pine and oak trees of the forest. Some rebels go fishing in a nearby stream to cook and feed their rebel friends. Thankfully, each shuttle is fitted with digital cooktop and a food replicator station. Fish are prepared in the shuttles and then served to the rebels waiting. At the same time, others go to the food replicators and wait their turn to get food. Replicators produce foodstuffs that look and taste like the real things. And each rebel carries a pouch of food, protein sticks, and canteens of water and other fluids. We shall stay here with the camp till tomorrow night, Stephen says later in their bedroll. Then we will go after Mother? Julia asks. Yes, Juliet, Stephen says, nodding. I think if we're honest with her up front about our family lineage, we will get her to change her following in her mind and soul. Julia says, I sure hope so, beloved, Stephen says, smiling now. I think she's still got some humanity left in her. I think you're right, beloved, Julia says. In the morning, everyone assembles and sets up defensive positions around the large camp, well hidden under the tree canopy. The defensive positions are well hidden under tree roots and tree falls, encompassing a 2 square kilometer radius around the camp, and cloaked shuttles. Very soon I'll be done with this abridged chapter. This chapter 4, so it's going to be a shorter chapter. Four more pages to read in chapter 4. So it's going to be chapter 4. Peck and the SEAL team leader, LJG Paul Dixon, positioned their troops around the perimeter, supported by heavy weapons, mortars, and a couple of batteries of light cannons. All hidden in a well-defended position inside the perimeter. All positions are easily attained in moments of joining a battle with Imperial forces. At the same time, the samurai order warriors are forming, changing that, samurai warriors, not order, sorry, delete that. At the same time, the samurai warriors, capital W, are forming into 2 large contingents of warriors to be deployed where needed along the lines. Stephen has also deployed a contingent of 15 warriors in a secluded meadow of meters outside the perimeter. Thankfully, they have their own masking abilities and can erect a barrier around the perimeter. Okay. Oh, yeah. Julia and I will be leaving the perimeter later today around sunset, Stephen says. Understood, Natuk says. Oh. You and Master Akita will be the leaders of the samurai. Stephen says as both men move around the perimeter of the camp, watching as their fellow samurai duel and practice with each other. And special forces and SEALs move about the perimeter, checking on gun emplacements. While down the middle of the camp, a well-traveled trail passes through the camp unhindered as patrols of Imperial troopers passed through the camp throughout the night as if they were never there. Not even aware of the presence of rebel forces, even as the troopers were passing through, they crossed the paths of numerous rebel soldiers and samurai warriors alike, unaware they were even present on the station. I'm sorry, I gotta go to the bathroom. I'll be right back. You can't sleeping in my room. Okay, I'm back. Okay, let's try that again. You and yeah, all right, started. You and Master Akita will be the leaders of the samurai, Stephen says as both men move around the perimeter of the camp, watching as their fellow samurai duel and practice with each other in special forces and shields. Move out the perimeter, checking on gun emplacements. Well, down the middle. Oh, I already spread that. I am so glad that our masking capabilities work with non-samurai as well as their own brethren, Master Akita says. Same here, Natuk says, nodding. And we can maintain this without so much as a thought. It does work fine for days, too, Stephen says. Since there are so many of us warriors assembled. When do you and the princess plan to split off from our group, Admiral? Natuk asks. Shortly after dark. Good luck, Stephen. Natuk and Akita say as one. Good luck to us all, friends. Stephen says, we'll need it. Later that day, as the sun sets over the mountains, changing that to the east. In the east, I'm going to change the rotations as opposite what we normally. Stephen and Julia give party instructions about the defense of the perimeter before slipping into the tree deep woods around the campsite. Off in the distance is a tall landing platform that dwarfs all the tallest trees in the region. It also looks busy as shuttles land and take off from the large platform with troops and some officers marching onto and off the shuttles as they arrive and depart. That is our destination, Stephen beams, pointing to the platform ahead of us, ahead of them, changing that. Okay. As long as we don't give away the camp's position, Julia beams back. Don't worry, we won't. Stephen beams. We will walk around a certain queue of this route to that platform. I have 4 more pages I'm going to read. Now I'm done with this chapter. Good idea, Julia beams, nodding as we continue. Along a trail that looks artificial with boot prints and the dirt beneath their feet. One with hoof prints in the wet ground. Just as light rain falls around them, they walk in silence as they can see and hear the approach of Imperial shuttles and scorpion fighters as they zoom by overhead. An hour or so later, a shuttle lands on the large platform, and Levnowski walks down the ramp. Where did you find them? She asks, looking at Stephen and Julia. We found them about an hour ago, my lady, the officer in charge of the troopers says. They were about 100 meters southwest of the South Pylon. They claimed to be here wishing to explore the planet's surface, not knowing that they were on the battle station. They were armed with these. She hands Stevens and Julia's samurai sword hilts. Both kids were shot with their hands shackled in front of their bodies. Can you continue your search of the region, Commander? They must have companions in the area. The lady here is wanted by the Emperor, Princess Julia Lurkin, the Centauri Prime. Levnowski says she is a known rebel spy and wanted for treason. Young man, I have no idea who he is. Yes, my lady, the officer in charge says, as she and her troopers rush off to comply with the Dark Ninja's commands, knowing that troopers have died at their hands for not following commands. Who are you, rebel? Levnowski asks Stephen, now looking at him. And Stephen T. Spears, Tiger 4, Destroyer of the Dark Star, Stephen says, admitting his identity. You, she yells out, shocked. You flew me out of that station, rebel. I am also Stephen T. Spanlighter, Ukrania Prime, son of Chancellor Michael L. Spanlighter II, son of Princess Irina Spanlighter. I'm your son, and this is Julia Spanlighter, child of the same said parents. Mom. Not possible. They died on Ukrania Prime when the palace was burned down. She says, search your heart, Mom. Julia says, you know that Stephen is telling the truth. Ovnosky looks into their eyes and sees no deception in their words. And she can see the same noses and mismatched eyes that both were born with, as she has the same eye disorder that she remembers seeing in their faces when they were infants. We do not want to fight you, Mom. Stephen beams into her head. We are here to end this war and end the continued death toll that the Emperor incurred in the galaxy. All right. One more page after this one. I had 2 pages left. Stephen? Julia? She beams back, smiling inside her breath mask. She feels her heart softening as she finally turns back to the good key, spelled K-E-E. This after 20 years as the Emperor's own dark apprentice. Mom, have you changed? Show us your sword, please, Julia. Stephen beams. The dark ninja pulls her sword hilt from her belt and presses the stud. And a pink blade appears from the end, where once it was obsidian black for 20 years now. She looks at it and her smile broadens even more. I am back to my old self again, children. She says aloud now. You know who we are now, Mom? Julia asks, smiling. Yes, I do, my daughter. Levnosky replies. My name is Princess Irwina Spanlighter. Stephen and Julia smile as they look at their mom for the first time since the first encounter in Geysel's Cloud City, where Julia was taken. See Book 1. Must bring you both before the Emperor to face them together. The princess beams. However, I have now reverted to my previous self. We can fight the Emperor as a family and defeat him and end this war. Good. The vast majority of the rebel fleet is en route to this star system, Stephen beams. They better be ready. They better be ready for a fight. The Dark Star is bigger. The Dark Star 2 is bigger, meaner, and more potent than the original Dark Star, son. Irwina beams. We know, Mom. We drop out of warp in 20 seconds. Admiral Sepp Dietrich says over his headset radio. Have green lights from all rebel ships in the fleet, Admiral. Hannah Baxter calls from her seat. Roger that, Hannah, Sepp says as he reaches forward with his hand to grip the eagle's throttle. As I can't talk today. As they pass through hyperspace and have a date with destiny. This battle can end the war or continue the suffering of billions across the galaxy. Once we are engaged, I want all ships in the fleet to mix it up with the Imperial fleet. Make our fleet less of an easy target for the Dark Star's main weapon. Roger that, Admiral. Come some responses from the other ships in the fleet. 10 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Sepp says as he pulls back on the throttles. And the Eagle drops out of warp close to the debris field that used to be Pan L382B. Off, excuse me. Off in the distance, the Imperial fleet and the Dark Star 2 and a swarm of Imperial scorpions zoom out from the Imperial fleet to engage the Viper fleet, now commanded by Rear Admiral Rigo L. Rena. But the Scorpions are outnumbered 3-1. The long lines of green blaster bolts zip past the rebel ships to no effect, but at the same time, rebel blaster bolts slam into Imperial vessels with devastating effect, but nothing from the massive battle station yet. Just as a second fleet of rebel ships appears from hyperspace behind the Imperial fleet. This is one of the SEP's secret surprises for the imps, what the rebels like to call the Imperials. Additionally, if necessary, he has a fleet of the Greys on standby with their cutting beams, massive high-energy beams that can cut a super battle cruiser in half in one cut. Excuse me. We caught them with their pants down, Hannah says, grinning ear to ear. But what is the Dark Star waiting for? Give them hell, boys, Rear Admiral Rigo L. Rena calls over her radio, as she and her swarm of Vipers dive into the Scorpions, now swarming around the rebel fleet. As she banked around a massive chunk of debris that used to be the planet L382b, Pan, known to the locals, and followed by her. And followed by her fellow Viper escorts and scores of Scorpions to try and pull the Scorpion. Okay, I'm sorry. Alright, anyways. To try and pull the Scorpions away from the rebel fleet. The field is vast and full of huge chunks of the planet and a small fleet of defense ships used to try to defend Pan to no avail. She can see the Eagle tangling with scores of Scorpions and getting the upper hand, thanks to two of the best pilots in the fleet, Seth Dietrich and Hannah Baxter. As the rest of the rebel fleet maneuvers to get mixed in with the Imperial fleet, there were numerous battle-damaged Imperial cruisers already moments after the battle was engaged. She swung around the next chunk of Pan, came face to face with 6 Scorpions. She takes them out before they can even get a lock on her. I see things I gotta change. That's right. As the Viper fleet engages the Scorpions, the U-wing Goonybirds are engaging the Imperial fleet and have taken out several of the smaller cruisers and damaged a couple of the larger super battle cruisers. They had not even put a dent in the supersized battle cruiser. But then a beam of pure energy plows through a line of rebel vessels, and they are gone in seconds. The ships had their shields up to full power, yet the energy beam cut them apart like a knife through butter. Oh my God, she says. Not changing that. Hannah says. I gotta change a lot of stuff. We'll have to deal with that soon enough. And that is the end of chapter 4. My revised chapter 4. It's a lot shorter than the original one I wrote. Chapter 5 is Chapter 5 will start here at the bottom when I get to it tomorrow. What do you think of book 4, chapter 4 so far? What do you think of book 4 so far? I could go on, but there are 9 pages more, and I'm not feeling reading that many pages. I think I just need to cut that in half. I cut about half. Makes me want to rewrite chapter numbers, but that's okay. I can fix it easily. But wasn't too bad. The final battle for the is coming. I hope you like the book. I hope you like it so far. It's been fun. I talked to my publisher today. Book 1 may be out on the maybe ready for publishing by the end of the month. So I talked to my publisher this afternoon, right before I went to shopping. He told me, but I owe more money, according to him. I don't know what I'm going to do there. I don't know how much it will be, and I don't know if I can afford it yet. Maybe I could be put on a payment plan. We'll see. If I have to, I'll do it. Something I can afford. I can't afford an expensive. But we'll see. Once I get through the book 1, I made. Now I just gotta. I'm excited. Closer than I ever thought it would be to publishing a book. But I'm going to call it a day, my friends. I'll be back with you tomorrow as soon as I can. If you like this, give me a thumbs up, give me a comment, and good or bad, I'll still read it, and I promise I will respond. If you have any suggestions that if you don't that can improve what I have, please give it. And I will respond as best as I can, as fast as I can. But I promise I will be back tomorrow to read more of my book. I'll finish reading what I have right now. It's called Chapter 4, but that's only because it is Chapter 4. It'll be Chapter 5 when I get done tomorrow. All right. But goodbye, my friends. Take care and God bless.